then in 2015, I left that and went completely solo because I just couldn't do both things. I couldn't be a publisher and an author. So that since then, I've just been indie and running on my own. And that's just to give you a quick background, where I'm coming from. So I have been a publisher, and that really helps me, I think, with marketing, because it taught me a lot being on that side of, the whole thing, with authors wanting me to do more for them and help them promote more. And, I at the same time was an author promoting myself. So there were several times when I felt like, what are you doing as well? I can do all these things for you as your publisher, but what are you doing too? Because I need you to do as much as I am. And I'm also doing it over here on the side as Aunt Charles to keep money, coming into the business. So it was a really hard, stressful, fun, interesting time. And I learned a ton. And then I was able to use all that to go forth after I went solo and just keep going and building from there. And I do now have, I think we're just about to put the 34th book out this fall. And I co-write one series out of 5 with my husband, and he helps me a lot in the background doing so much of this work. So there you go. That's a quick intro into my background and where I'm coming from.
Awesome. Since Nicole is disappeared, I guess I'm going to follow suit there. I won't give you my entire background, but I did come out. This was my 3rd career, the one I should have been in all along, but took the very long route to get here. So I did work in film and television in New York City for almost a decade. And then I went on and became a photographer and designer when I should have been a writer. And eventually, as I got older, slightly wiser, but I decided it was time to do writing. But the interesting thing, kind of from what Anne was saying, when I was not becoming a writer in the earlier days, it was because self-publishing really wasn't a viable option to make a living at that time. And I remember reading books and saying, you have to send this all out on spec, and then maybe someone pays you for something one day. I'm like, I have bills, I have a home, I have a car. How does one do this? Hence, I started a photography company where I could make money. Anyway, fast forward, the times have changed so much, and they continue to change now. I knew when I started writing, the couple lessons were, well, one, self-publishing was an option, and it wasn't nearly what it is right now and what I think it will continue to be. It was earlier stages, but you could write a book and put it online. And I was just kind of hearing about this. I was like, oh, that's really interesting. I don't have to send it out. I don't have to worry about gatekeepers. And the other thing I had learned in my other careers is it wasn't necessarily talent that distinguished the people who were the best. And obviously you want to have talent, you want to be great at your craft, you want to continue growing, but it was knowing how to take your product, whatever that is, whether that's a feature film, whether that's your business, your small business, or a book, whatever it is, and get it out to people. You have to be able to sell that. You have to be able to market that. And that is such a huge part of it. And whether you're with a traditional publisher or self-publishing, that's going to be the difference between sitting in your room being like, this is the most brilliant thing I've ever written, which none of us do, but that you could say that. And people reading what you write or produce or publish. And so when I kind of first learned about the times changing, and I knew it was time for me to finally do what I'd meant to do all along, I realized that it wasn't about learning to write as much as it was learning to market and to get over my own, my own human, I would say like fragile human ego problems of just like, oh, this isn't good or whatever. So I started writing under pen names, and it was incredibly helpful. So I started in romance. I probably have, I don't know, well, it depends on 30 to 50 books of various lengths in romance. And so I wrote under a number of pen names and a number of subgenres. And only a year ago did I finally start writing in mystery, which I had intended to do all along. So I kind of feel like a baby again, starting over. But I learned so much through that process of being able to be anonymous and take the books and learn to market, learn to do online publishing. And I never realized at that point that there was a threshold, because I knew so many successful people when I first got in, and it takes a lot of work, but anything takes a lot of work. And that was something through my entire life. It's like anything you put your energy into, and a lot your time and energy, and can maintain excitement about, you will eventually find some version of success in it, depending on what your version of success is or your goals. And so I love what we do, and I'm passionate about helping other people to do it, I guess.
And
Okay.
I see that Jennifer did join, so we'll get Nicole to answer this, and we'll get Jennifer up to speed. Thanks for joining, Jennifer.
Thank you. Sorry.
That's okay. So Nicole, can you tell a little bit about the success you've had around stuff?
Absolutely. Yeah, so I had always been like writing for myself. I never thought like I would go ahead and publish when I first started, but it ended up being more of something to do during the pandemic for me. So I was like, I'm either going to teach myself to knit, or, you know, I'm going to take this on more seriously and focus on writing a book. And so when I first wrote Catalyst, I did it, you know, and I sent it to a few friends just thinking like, hey, you guys will enjoy this. This will be fun. And they were like, no, this is good. Like you actually need to publish this. So from there, it was kind of like, well, how? Because it wasn't something I was familiar with. It wasn't something I really knew. So I went and I did the indie route simply because I didn't have a whole lot of direction otherwise. But it ended up being the best thing that could have possibly happened, because I started like posting videos on TikTok, and I felt a lot like I had no idea what I was doing. And I was just trying to pretend like I knew what I was doing, but I was just shooting darts in the dark, hoping something would stick. And from there, the book kind of took off with smaller creators, you know, who pushed it, and then, you know, more smaller creators pushed it, and it got a decent following on TikTok just through, you know, some internet marketing kind of ventures. And through there, that's how I met Mickey. And I remember when he and I first talked, one of the first things that was really important to me was I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing on social media, and I feel a bit like a used car salesman trying to convince people to read my stuff and be like, hey, I wrote this book and it's awesome and you should read it. But again, it was just really difficult for me to do that. So I also had no outlet and no real knowledge of how to navigate any of the traditional media world, which is very different. So, you know, finding Mickey and finding that partnership has really been beneficial, because it has just put, you know, Catalyst in so many places that even on my best day, I never even could have imagined. So we're excited. We're going into like our third book, which is Flashpoint, which launches this fall. And you know, it's grown steadily over the last year, and I'm just really excited, because I think that, you know, it's like having a publicist is having someone in your corner that can, you know, help with the things that you can't do, because as much as you want to be able to do everything and be a master at everything, there are things that you do better. So like for me, I know that like the marketing piece is not my favorite. However, I love writing. So I need someone that is really passionate about the marketing piece to do that side of it too. So it's just adding to your team. And it really ensures that, you know, you as an author, that you aren't just seen, that you're also heard, that your work is understood, that it's put in the right places and put before the right audience. So that's my spiel.
Thanks, Nicole. There have been a couple questions in the chat that we'll get to, but I do want Jen to chime in on the story and how she's found success. I mean, she's a multiple Amazon bestseller. She's won like 4 awards this year for her book, and she's going to be one of the guests at multiple festivals here in Canada. So yeah, go ahead, Jen.
Well, my answer is Mickey. Mickey is
No,
the
but anyways.
key to all of my success. So my book was a really long journey. You know, it was originally a one-woman show, and then somebody suggested that I adapt it into a novel once the show kind of got a little notoriety. And I wrote it quite quickly, and then gave up on it several times because I didn't really understand what it entailed to publish a book. But let's fast forward to, I finally published the book in 2018. I had some issues with the title, with censorship, and decided after a year and a half to relaunch it with a new title, which ended up being the biggest game changer and best decision, because I was able to get the book out into the marketplace, and that was major. And then partnering with Mickey, I guess we partnered about 6 months after I had already launched the book. Of course, hindsight is 2020. Moving forward, I would never want to do a book launch without having a publicist in place and having, kind of the right press and things like that. But with Mickey's help and guidance and all the exposure he's gotten me, I was able to hit #1 on Amazon with 2 of my books, actually. I wrote 2 how-to books during the pandemic as well. One of them is how to record and publish your audiobook in 7 simple steps, because I did record and publish my audiobook, and it was a disaster. It took me a few tries. So I learned enough to feel confident to write a book about it. So I have a nonfiction and a fiction that are both #1 bestsellers on Amazon. Once again, that I attribute to Mickey's guidance. And so Mickey's not only a great publicist, he's a great sounding board. Like, before I spend money, before I move forward with certain decisions, Mickey knows just way more about the literary world than I do. So I'll always send things to him, run things by him first to see if he thinks it's worthwhile, if the price seems reasonable, things like that. So Mickey helped me make the decision to move forward with a couple of different marketing campaigns. And also in terms of like literary contests, because there's hundreds of literary contests out there. Most contests have a fee, even if it's nominal. And just kind of deciding like which ones are worthwhile, which ones are big enough, which ones, can help get the book into bookstores or a little more notoriety or things like that. And that's the other thing too, like Mickey is so great with communicating. Like, he's always available. He answers text messages, phone calls, emails so promptly. And like, this should just be a whole plug for Mickey. My whole spiel is just a plug.
I did not
like,
pay them to say these things, guys. This is not what this is be. But thank you for that, Jen. I appreciate it.
No, but having the right team, having the right sounding board, having people around you who have walked down the road before and have advice as to what works, what doesn't work, what's worth spending the money, what's worth the gamble, and what's not. Because all of us indie writers, like, we're dipping into our own pockets for everything we're doing, like from putting time aside to actually write, to paying for editors, proofreaders, artwork, all of that stuff. Like, every decision is an out-of-pocket decision. And having somebody who can actually be discerning, because you can just throw a whole bunch of money. I get Instagram DMs on a daily basis for people asking if they want me to put my book on their site for their bookstagram or this or that, and they guarantee this many followers or this many views, and nobody can guarantee anything like that. Like, any legitimate marketing person is going to say to you up front, we can't guarantee anything. This is the game plan. This is what we hope for. This is what my other clients have been able to hit. But I don't know if I answered the question I was supposed to, but Mickey's the be all and end all.
Yeah. Oh, thank you for that, Jen. No, you did. So I would like to get to some of these chat questions so that we only do have an hour. So I did want to address some of those. I see you have your hand up, Stephanie.
We put our hands up on a panel. Yeah, I do. I just want to, and we can come back to it later, but I just want to add for anyone who's watching this, whether you're writers or readers or whatever, you don't have, like, I love having Nikki as part of my team now, but you don't have to have a publicist to be successful in writing. And as Nicole was saying, you know, sometimes it's about finding your strengths. It's marketing can be really overwhelming, or different ones. Like, I'm freaked out about TikTok, but one of my close friends, and that's one of the questions, so we can come down to it, is like, I have a little anecdotal ad when we get to that question, is doing great. And so, but I'm overwhelmed right now, so I can't do social media. I've almost like barely done any this year, but there have been over the years, sometimes you would not want to look at how much I've spent on Facebook ads and newsletter swaps and just all of the things, but you do not have to have one specific thing to be successful. You have to find things, try them out, see what works for you, and continue also navigating as the industry changes, as your needs change. And as far as having a team, that might start out as just you. And it also might start out as you and one other person. I had one friend that we started doing this together, the only person. And then maybe you have an online community, like we knew a couple people online. Like, you need a little support because you're going to freak out along the way or be nervous, you know, just little things or big things, and you'll pull back. But to keep moving forward, find a support system. It doesn't have to be this massive team, and it doesn't have to be a publicist, but there are so many ways to do this. And I think even the span of us, we all have some version of similar and a lot of similarities between us, and some in a lot of differences. And we all do this for a living. Okay, questions? Just want to add.
Stephanie, I'm gonna need that check back, by the way. Just kidding. I'm only kidding. I'm only kidding. Nicole, you had your hand up, and I do want to get to some questions, ladies, if that's okay.
Do you want me to answer, or do you want to go to questions? Because
Nope.
I can wait on mine.
Say what you wanted to say, and then we'll go to
Yep.
questions.
So I was just going to agree with Stephanie, and I was going to say that, like, as she said, everybody's going to have their own little combination of things that work. And also, because everything is changing so fast, you are going to be sometimes just shooting darts in the dark, figuring out what works. And sometimes you can run an ad that works really, really well, and then you're counting on that ad, and then you run it again at like a different time, and nobody sees it. So you have to be able to flex, like, to work with it. And I also think that you have to be willing to grow. As much as I would love to just stick to what I'm good at, there has been, you know, some different kinds of opportunities and things that I've had, but it took me saying, yes, I'm going to give that a shot. Yes, I'm going to take that opportunity and do that. And yeah, so I just I'll go ahead and let you get to your questions, because I'm sure that whatever else I have to say will probably pan into that. So.
Nicole, one of them is for you directly, so you might as well answer that now. Someone's asked you what you were doing specifically on TikTok that's worked for you, and how do you see growth on that forum and improvement on that forum?
So for me, I tried a lot of different things in the beginning, and not a lot of them worked, but it was just a matter of trial and error. And what I started doing was, I noticed that if you reached out to a big creator, you weren't necessarily going to get their attention. You weren't necessarily going to, you know, get what you wanted from them. However, if you reached out to some of the smaller creators, so I mean, like a following of between, I don't know, 500 and maybe 2,000. And, you know, because once you hit that 1,000 mark, it becomes a little bit bigger. So I would target people who were really big book talkers and are in this small pool. So meaning that all of their content was book related, not necessarily that they had a big following, but that all of their content was book related. Maybe once in a while they would, you know, post something that was more funny or something else like that. But for the most part, all of their content was book stuff. And I would reach out to them and I would say, hey, I am a new author. Because I was brand new when I started this. This was first book, first time around, you know, TikTok was a new forum, and I felt way too old for TikTok as well. And so I reached out to some of these authors and said, hey, I'm a new author. And I see that, you know, when I picked them, I had also picked creators that at least read some of my genre stuff. So either they were into mystery or they were into romance. Ideally, they were into thriller mafia romances, but maybe they were just into one of the two. So, kind of read the room, pick the people that make sense to you. But I reached out to them directly and I asked if I sent them a book, would they read it? I did not say, if I send you a book, will you make a video for me? I did not say, will you do all this stuff for me if I send you a free book? I simply said, if I send it to you, will you read it? And then just kind of communicated with them from there. And some of the time I would send a free book and I would hear nothing back. But fortunately, they got the book, they read the book, they liked the book, and then they talked about it. And then from there, I would kind of monitor like the comments and people who were like, "Ooh, this sounds interesting to me," and check out their pages and see what they were into as well, and see if that was something that it could grow on. But I started finding, my fan base just through, reaching out to creators who were really, on the smaller side, but were really big book talkers and were really interested in that community, because I felt that the heart and the passion was going to be there behind it. And so for me, that's what worked. And then the book just kind of took off on TikTok. So hopefully that answers your question. I would say, if you reach out to the bigger creators, yes, one shot with a bigger creator could make or break your book. However, those creators are probably getting between 500 and 1,000 requests a day. So you may not even get on the radar. So sometimes, building it in that snowball mentality, which has been what Mickey and I have done, has really been beneficial. So, and then also when you do get feedback from some of those creators, you can either, use it as creative criticism, you can, apply what they've said to you. But you can't get discouraged if it's something that, oh, I didn't like it or it wasn't for me. So that will happen. And as much as we want our work to be for everyone, it's not going to be for everyone. So kind of just a mix of, you have to put yourself out there and you have to keep creating content. And then you also, have to find your fan base, and that takes a little bit of research. It takes a little bit of connecting with your people as well.
Thanks, Nicole. I'm going to ask the other question now. This is for the group. The first question really is, as an indie publisher, what percentage of time do you find spending on the publishing aspect versus the writing aspect? And I'd like Anne, if possible, to ask you first, because I don't know of anyone who's had as much success as an indie publisher as you have from that aspect. So go ahead, please.
Oh, thank you. I spend way too much time on the publishing and very, little on the writing compared to what I'd like to do. I'd like to be writing, 80% of the time. But really I get about 40% of the time to write, because when this is your whole business, when this is everything, and the others on the panel know this, you're not only an author, writer, but you're a marketer, a promoter. On top of that, you're a bookkeeper. And I also have print, that I have a salesperson that works print sales specifically. So I'm doing a lot acting as, taking care of inventory orders, sending out invoices. So there's just so many sides of this. If you think of it as a regular business and you think about how you have the head of marketing and the head of sales and the head of all these different parts of a business, IT, someone has to do that. And when you're indie, that's you and your support group. So, Mickey plays a big part in that marketing part for me to help get, out there. But you have to think about it. If you opened a, candy shop on Main Street, how much time would you get to spend making the candy, and how much time would you spend marketing to people and trying to get people to come into your store and try your candy and talking to them and building, relationships with them? That's the same thing for us. We may be behind a computer somewhere, but I'm really big on relationship marketing, and it's done me very well over the years with getting me lots and lots of reviews. And I have diehard readers that know when I put a book out, boom, here we go. We do reviews, we recommend, we do all this whole thing, and the train just plows through, and here's a new book by Anne. So it's really exciting after you've built that, but it does take time to build that. And that's, time away from writing.
And
Thanks, Sarah. I'm just looking. Yeah, go ahead, Stephanie, please.
Well, actually, Nicole has her little hand up. I saw. I should use that
I'm trying to
feature.
figure out how to work the hand up thing.
I was
So
like, oh, what a feature. I should use that.
my point was very short, and that was that she talked about having a diehard reading fan base. That's really important as well. I refer to mine as my alpha squad. So I have probably about 30 to 50 ladies that run my Discord fan base, and they are my alpha squad. They will be my ARC readers. And from them, I get recommendations from people. They also think, like, hey, I have this friend. She's really into mafia romance. You should reach out to her, see if she would like to read the book and become an ARC reader as well. So that word of mouth has expanded. So, and I have, just the different groups there, and like some people I would talk about actual plot items with. So there's kind of like a hierarchy in the alpha squad as well. And then I also have a formatter and like an editor. And those two things are obviously really important for different reasons, but having that team and having those people who are experts in those particular fields has been exponentially helpful to me, because it's taken, as she said, like, you wear so many different hats as an indie author and you're responsible for all those different areas. And as much time as you spend writing, you have to spend almost twice as much of that time marketing. And I know when I started with Mickey, I was like, I told him like, hey, I cranked out 2 books within 6 months. And he was like, okay, how many books are you planning to do per year? And I was thinking that it would be great if I could do 10 books a year. And he was like, no, absolutely not. Like, like put the brakes on. That's a bad idea. Because when you crank out that many books, and it sort of looks like you're not paying attention to quality, and that it's going to be a lower quality book for that. You're not spending as much time marketing. And I didn't really understand that until I launched book 2 with Mickey. I launched Catalyst, the first book, by myself. It was a nightmare. I barely had an editor. So we did a full relaunch of both books. We did a cover change on both books. It's amazing now. I feel like this 3rd book is going to be the best launch we've had yet. And I'm just really excited. And I just think that having your team is like having your Avengers on your side. So it's really, really beneficial. And I talked for way too long, and I'm sorry.
That's okay, Nicole. Thanks. Stephanie, you're up. Thank you.
Well, no, I'm in learning stuff on this panel. No, and so what Nicole was just saying, it's interesting even for me, because I would say that if you look at Nicole and myself, like we have similar but slightly have come from different models, where I would say I put out a bajillion books for the first couple of years and just focused on marketing. Some I co-wrote, most of them I was just like of differing lengths. So I used to do really short books. The one I'm trying to get up for pre-order this weekend is so long, going from like a 20,000 word book to right now, the one I'm trying to edit is 115,000 words, which is, the second in a trilogy. I've changed over time, but I put out a lot of romance books, and my model did not have a Mickey. My model did not have, of course, I developed mailing lists and ARC readers and things like that. But because I wasn't a real person showing my face, marketing was even more important, but a different type of marketing. And even now, I've actually taken a lot of stuff down under my own name to try and reconfigure things going forward. And this year's been the weirdest year, because I went full steam ahead, where marketing was, it felt like 120% of the time, but I'm sure it was a little bit less. I just felt like I was, and by marketing, it could be being on Facebook, doing ads, Amazon, prepping new books. I put out, again, when they're shorter. When I first started, I put out, so many, like in a very short period of time, like 7 books. And so it's short, short little Christmas, like Hallmark kind of books, but it's very different than what Nicole's doing right now. And so I've had a lot of success. I almost always hit Amazon #1 bestseller in categories like, sometimes in the whole store, not #1 in the whole store. So I think we got 5 once in the overarching, but usually, that's under my pen names. But that took a ton of marketing time. That took a ads and promos and swaps and all of the things that I knew how to do coming from the group of people I surrounded myself with. And meeting Mickey was wonderful because, he was referred to me because it's like, oh, there's also this other side that these other resources that you can use. And so now I have 3 little kids. Trying to find life balance has also taken a back seat of like, how do I not be on all the time and spend more time? So like right now I'm spending a lot more time writing than I ever have in the past. But if you were to look, my marketing is just non-existent. I feel like I've taken this year off because I'm like, oh, in 1 month, I'll learn to simplify. 6 months later, I'm like, oh God, it's very different. It's a different business model. It's a different style. And I'm looking forward to having something more like, Ann and Nicole, even though, because I've had success in doing what I knew how to do, which was put out books and, more rapid release style. And now being able, and I do have a lot of followers and, I've been contacted, Blackstone's putting out under my Sophie Mays, my audiobooks, I have people coming in and there's a world there but I'm trying to establish things in a different way where I'm myself and, coming out with new books more slowly and its adjustment. So it really also depends to your market. You're always going to be doing marketing if you want to be selling to some degree. Right now, if I'm doing nothing, I still make money because I have so many books and I put so much stuff out and, done so much in the back, but it's not what you will do to when you're marketing, you'll get results, that's where you're building. And so you have to, like Ann said, it is your business. And I always try to tell other people, it's like you have to hire yourself as the writer sometimes, like, okay, that's the writer. Is that book done? Okay, now you're the producer of that book. And now you have to take that and wear that other hat, do those other things. So it's awesome being a writer. I love doing that part. But as you're building and scaling, that gets to be like one of the departments. And then it's like, okay, now go do the other stuff. I don't know if that's useful, but.
Thanks, Stephanie. Jen apologizes, but she got booted out of the group. So we send our apologies for that. And we'll move on. So the other question that was asked, and I'd like everyone to chime in on this as well. Would you prefer to work with a small publisher or larger publisher if you had the opportunity? And every one of you, please answer this as well. So I could pick a name, but I'll just let you guys choose if you want.
And you start.
If I could choose, boy, I don't want to do either is the problem. If I had to choose, that's tough too, because big publishers offer big distribution, but you're a small little potato and you get, knocked around a lot. And if you're with a small press, you're going to be doing a lot more work to get out yourself. So it's going to take extra time and work marketing that you could be putting to the book if you're with a big press. I suppose I'd go with a small, just because I have had too many friends that have had series, which is what I write, where they get so far in and whether it's an editor change or the sell through wasn't quite what they'd expected, or who knows what, and your series gets dropped, they don't want any more in that, and they want you to start another one. And I can't imagine how frustrating that would be to have to stop in the midst of a series just because marketing decided I didn't have the numbers they thought I should pull. Whereas with a small press, I think they're going to give you more freedom to kind of write and develop something a little bit more time. It's just going to be like going to a small writing conference versus a large one. I don't know if you've experienced either of those, but the big ones, it's exciting, it's flashy, all the big names are there, but boy, it's a whole different feel than when you're at a small one with maybe 200 or less, and you really get to know the other attendees and you network, and it's a real positive feel because there's not so much competition. It's more of a group, type of thing. And the little bit I've had with small presses, it just seems like they work more individually with the author. So I guess I'd still rather go indie myself. So that's just because I've done it so long.
Thanks, Sam.
I
Go
would
ahead, Nicole.
absolutely
Yep.
I would absolutely have to agree. You know, and I had a lot of questions when I first started because I didn't attempt to send my book to a publisher. I wrote the book and I wanted to retain those rights. And it might be because, you know, I had an attorney husband who was like, nope, maintain your rights, keep hold of everything, especially if it blows up. And, you know, when, again, like I've been at this for a year and 3 months now. And the success that I've seen as an indie has really kind of changed the picture that I wanted. Because when I first started, everybody wants, you know, they want to be that bestseller. They want to be the, you know, 50 Shades of Grey. They want to be, you know, JK Rowling. They want to put it out there. And again, they want to be heard, not just seen. But you obviously have to work back from that. And you have to say, like, you know, what am I willing to do for that to happen? Am I willing to take that part-time job to pay for those marketing expenses, to pay for that publicist, to pay for that, whatever that is, you know, you have to decide that. And when I first started and everyone was shocked that they were like, oh, you didn't even try to send it to a publisher. And I said, no, I had said that it was because I wanted the story to stay there and I want it to be authentic and I wanted it to be mine at the end of the day. And what I found in that was I found a community of people that are exactly like that. They are genuine, they are focused, they are driven, and they are the ones that get to decide where their stories go and they get to hold those rights. So for me, I'm sorry, my cat just tore down something in my office. I was trying to get him to stop, but wasn't working. So anyways, no, I think that if I had to decide between small publisher or big publisher, I think it would depend on where I was at the time. Because if I have that fan base, if I have that, you know, bargaining power at the negotiation table, I'm going to get more of what I actually want, which would be the control of the story and things like that. But, you know, just submitting your manuscript and hoping that a big publisher picks it up so that they can make you into a success, that would be the worst way to go into that situation, because you're going into it on the downside. Like you're willing to accept anything so that you become a success. And so you're actually giving up more control in that regard. So I'd probably say that I would, you know, gauge it, but I'd probably stick with small press. But if you really ask me what I wanted, I'm happy as an indie. I'm so excited for the community that we're building and, you know, for the people who have followed and, you know, the fans have made it as successful as it is. And I think that there's a lot more power and a lot more authenticity and genuineness as an indie. Not saying that anyone who is traditionally published is not genuine or, you know, focused or career driven or anything like that. Just saying that I found an amazing community here. And I think that's where I'd want to stay.
Thanks, Nicole. Your turn, Stephanie.
And to something Nicole saying, I think it's fading, but there's a preconceived notion that like you get accepted by a traditional publisher. I cannot talk. Sorry. I've been literally working on a book and not talking to anyone for like 3 days. So I'm weirder than normal. But anyways, like, you know, there's this idea that you get traditionally published and you will blow up. And I think that all of us who do this have come to realize, and there's a lot of through the community and talking, that doesn't really happen. I'm sure it does happen. I'm going to use a sports analogy. I have no idea why, because I don't follow football, but it's like being a walk-on and then the NFL is like, you're so amazing. Like, we have to take you, you know. Did that work? I think that's the thing, right? But, you know, you're not going to.
Absolutely. Yes.
Right.
100%.
You just like, okay. I am sporty. I just don't know all the sports stuff. I'll play sports. But so to answer, I guess, that from my perspective, I've never tried to get a traditional publisher. I never wanted to get a traditional publisher. Early on, before I was a writer, I did have a small publishing contract on an underwater portrait photography book that I did, and I reached out to 2 people, and they that was successful. Oh, we didn't go all the way through, but that was really more me when I was an underwater photographer. So I had a nice experience with that. But once I actually started writing books, I, by that point, had kind of come to the conclusion that that wasn't what I was focused on. Now, if you were to ask me, it's, I think, really, really specific to my journey, as I think it probably is to everyone else's. I like what I do. I will continue to be an indie publisher and I have considered trying to get a literary agent to do a big publisher for like one book series, you know, like one series that I enjoy writing, but I'm not super invested in, more for the experience of just more like just reaching a different audience, a wider audience. So I've considered, maybe I have a book waiting. I just keep not doing it. So you can see how high it is on my priority list, but I'm like, oh, I'll send this one to try and get a literary agent to try and submit it to a higher, you know, like a larger traditional publishing group, but I haven't. If I was coming into this and I was looking for representation, like I really felt like that was my calling to have a publisher, I would probably go with a smaller company, just because, or smaller publisher, like both Anne and Nicole have said, a lot of what you do, you have to do. You still have to do the work. And a large publisher is not going to do that work for you. You know, I like James Patterson's agency, I think, or publisher, I think it's like the James Patterson department, and then everybody else. You can't see it. I don't know what the angle is of the camera. I mean, if you, for some reason, take off, or you have great connections, or something happens, more money and more resources will be put towards you. But it's a corral or a stable, or I'm all over the place with my metaphors today, but like, you know, there's a lot of people in this, and then the big sellers who are already pre-established are getting the lion's share of the resources at probably any publishing company, but certainly a big one. So if you want that help, and I'm sure it is helpful and wonderful, I would go to a smaller place where they are going to put their energy and enthusiasm toward you, and you will both work in conjunction to building your brand and trying to, you know, reach readers and all that. But at any company, from everything I've ever heard from any one of our writing friends and in the community, whether they are trad published or indie or anything, is you still have to do the work. There's still an expectation of you doing something, you know, building your brand, marketing in some way, whether it's on TikTok or it's on Facebook, or it's just through your newsletter, whatever it is, or it's through interviews, you still have to put in the work. So it's really probably finding what you want as along the way as your journey mates during a period of time. So.
Awesome. Thanks, Stephanie. We only have a few minutes left, but I do want to get to the last question. And I can leave for it because it actually retains to me. So let's keep our answers somewhat short. We only have a few minutes left, just FYI for everybody. And the question is, how do you find a good publicist, and how much is it? So I'm not going to answer this because I feel jaded and I feel like part of the equation's that. But I would like to get your guys' take on this, and then we'll sum up, if that's okay.
I'll start. I found Mickey because I was giving a workshop on marketing, and the partner given the workshop with me had Mickey as her publicist, and he was there supporting her and cheering her on. And I really liked what I saw that he was doing. And then I asked her who he was, and she told me all about him and spoke very highly of him. And I knew from her and then a couple others that were in that conference that he was their publicist, and they just loved him. And so word of mouth is big amongst us authors. You know, if some other authors have a publicist and can't say enough good things, look into it definitely, because especially for independents, we're really, every dollar counts. And so if you find a good publicist that you feel is worth every single penny, like what I feel Mickey is, then jump on that and do whatever you can. Well, don't jump on Mickey, but do whatever you can to get, aligned with him.
And I'll just run with it. Yeah, word of mouth. I found Mickey through a writer friend who had a friend who had a podcast that he had been on. She was just told me, we were talking, and she's like, you should work with this guy, because she knew whatever I had coming out and was, busting my butt and doing lots of stuff. And she's like, you should talk to, you should get a hold of this guy. And so I said, yeah, send me his information. And we had a lovely conversation and have been friends ever since. But I think that it is a combination of word of mouth. Like I was just saying, I've been trying to find, well, I've considered a literary agent, and like, what do you do if you don't know anyone and no one has? And I could go online probably and just in some of the writer groups and say, hey guys, who does anyone use? And so you could do that. Again, try and use your network online is so helpful. Like there's so many of us, or if you're at a conference, but, or if there are people that you think are at your level, whatever that may be, or that you like, see who they use. If you can track that down and maybe try and contact that person. So either word of mouth or just resourcefulness and research.
Thanks,
And then
Stephanie.
try.
Thanks, Stephanie. And Nicole, your turn.
Excellent. No, I agree both Anne and Stephanie about like word of mouth. I think that a good recommendation is worth 1,000 resumes. So, because these people have, again, they've spent their money and they've seen whether or not the results are there. And I do think that obviously like having someone like Mickey, I remember when we first had our first chat and he set me up with my first interview, I was listening to him talk about me and I was like, wow, I don't even talk about myself that way. Like, I don't feel that good about myself, but he made me sound like I was a superhero and I loved that. And having, again, someone on his team that is as knowledgeable as he is, and also make sure that what you're looking for is what that publicist specializes in. So because I had this success on social media, because that was kind of working for me, but I knew nothing about the other avenues, TV, radio, print. I knew nothing about those things. I wanted someone who was very experienced in those things. And so for me, if I had found an internet publicist, that wouldn't have worked. So you really need to evaluate what you're looking for, listen to recommendations, and you'll kind of figure it out for yourself, whether that person is worth the time. But having Mickey on my team has literally felt like I had Wolverine in my corner, and I call him Wolverine all the time. But it's someone who goes to bat for you when you are writing, when you are overwhelmed, when you are like down on those things. That person has your back and they're going to make you feel amazing. So
Thanks, Nicole.
And
I will say,
can I add one? Can I just also, sorry, I know we're out of time, but I would just quickly say, but make sure it's the right fit too. Try, like I've been with Mickey for a couple of years, and I, like I said, I love him. I so value it. But if it's not the right fit for you, that's okay. You can try someone out and also not feel like you need to commit in anything, whether it's your editor or any marketing help you have or anyone on a team. Never feel like, oh, I'm so excited I got a publicist to talk to me or something, that you have to go with them, because you're going to work for each other and you're helping each other. You're each other's team.
And that relationship is going to be really, really important. So absolutely, it's got to be a fit. It's, like a marriage in some ways. You both do different things, and it's really important.
I am going to say one thing around this, and then I'm going to shut up because we'll have to leave. If a publicist is going to charge you up front to have a conversation or tell you or make false promises, and they're going to guarantee you selling all kinds of books, my advice, turn and run. You don't have to sign with me, but find someone who's not going to say those things, because you should never, ever, ever have to pay somebody to have a conversation. That's my opinion. That's our panel. I'm sorry we had to cut it time. It's like 3 o'clock now. So thank you, Anne, Stephanie, Nicole, for your feedback. Thank you all for joining, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you guys. Thanks
Bye.
everybody.
Thank you
for
so much
being
for having
here.
us.
Yeah, it's good to see you all that I know. I'm trying to leave, but I'm just going to wave.
Hi, Stephanie.